This week on the Creation Today show,
AI is going to completely revolutionize our society in the next 3 years. The church historically is kind of behind on some of these things. I think it's really important that the church be as clued in as possible into the benefits and dangers of AI. And also for pastors should have a very keen awareness of what's coming down the pike so they can help their church.
Welcome to the Creation Today show, where we bring together interviews with experts and solid Bible teaching. Your host, Eric Hovind, affirms the ultimate authority of God's Word, the truth of creation, and why it matters to you.
Artificial intelligence is here. How is it going to shape the future of the church? That is a big question we've got. From AI-generated sermons to deepfake preachers, artificial intelligence is advancing at a staggering pace. Some see this as a powerful tool for spreading the gospel. Others are warning that it could distort from the truth and replace real discipleship. It could even undermine potentially the authority of the Word of God, and that obviously would be a big concern. So as technology pushes the boundaries of what's possible, Christians must ask, what does AI do to the church and how does it fit in? Today on the Creation Today show, we're diving into this urgent conversation with a former Meta employee who has spent years helping to develop AI. So we want to explore both the potential and the dangers of AI in ministry. And I want to ask him, can AI, enhance evangelism? Is it going to lead to a watered down, algorithm-driven Christianity? Is it going to bring people closer to the truth? Is it going to replace biblical wisdom with artificial knowledge? Lots of questions, okay? So this is one of the biggest issues the church is going to face in the coming years. And honestly, we need to be on the front lines of this. We need to be ready. So join us today for a mind-opening discussion, and it's going to help you navigate the rise of AI with wisdom, discernment, and biblical foundations. Can't wait to talk about it. Hey, if you're new to the Creation Today show, we are on a mission to disciple the world one person at a time. We just want to help turn your stumbling blocks into stepping stones on your journey to know the truth. I would like to welcome everybody who's joining us on social media out there. Thank you, guys. Please hit those like, subscribe, and follow buttons. We always appreciate that. And we love having you join us Wednesdays at noon here live for the Creation Today show. To my television and podcast audience, we sure are thankful for you. It's going to be an amazing, engaging topic today. Make sure you write your television station and let them know you're thankful to have the Creation Today show broadcast on their station. By the way, let me just remind you guys that are out there on social media and television podcast, our ministry is based in Pensacola, Florida, and we're just a group of people being discipled through weekly conversations so that we can be all God has called us to be. We get new experts every single week, and it truly is a blast to have these conversations. If you want to help disciple the world with Creation Today, help reach the lost, you can join us. Come on over to creationtoday.org/partner and help us and get access to everything we do. Like I said, you're going to love our guest today. Before becoming lead pastor now of Calvary Baptist Church in New Brunswick, Texas, he worked for Meta. That's the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Oculus, and many other companies. He graduated Pensacola Christian College right here in Pensacola, Florida, and in 2005 got his master's in business from Liberty University. I got it right. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Pastor David Beatty. Pastor Beatty, like Warren Beatty. Pastor Beatty, welcome to the Creation Today show.
Thanks, Eric. It's good to be on.
I knew I was going to get that wrong, buddy. I was even at your church a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, is it Beatty or Beatty, Beatty or Beatty? It's like Hovind. We get all kinds and just get used to it.
To be honest, I mispronounced your last name when you came to our church in front of everybody. So
this is payback then.
Exactly.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, my wife and I had a great time at your church. I hope the church loved it as much as we did, man. Setting people on fire, having fun, talking about science and scripture. That was absolutely a blast. Thank you for inviting Creation Today over to the church. We really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, the kids loved it. I loved it. It was pretty cool to see all the fire in the auditorium. You brought the house down when doing that. It went viral across social media. Absolutely.
Hey, I really, really enjoyed our time with you and your wife, Jay, especially because, and I don't know if Jay was happy about this, but simply talking about AI and you telling me I used to work for Meta, I worked in the AI department. I was nothing but questions. So forgive me if I pestered you with too many questions, but we got more today for the show. I just had to have you on after talking to you because I thought, here's a pastor who knows what's going on and can help the church navigate what's good, what's bad, what to look for, what to be happy about, what to watch out for. So do you see this? I don't know. I see this as kind of important. Do you see this as an important conversation for the church today to understand the future of AI?
Oh, yes. Well, so AI is going to completely revolutionize our society in the next 3 years. And the church historically is kind of behind on some of these things. And I think it's really important that the church be as clued in as possible into the benefits and dangers of AI. And also for pastors should have a very keen awareness of like what's coming down the pike so they can help their church. There are some real existential questions that society will be asking themselves, and our churches need to be prepared for those kinds of questions.
Let's start with just the basics. What is AI? How does it work? Like, can we just start right there? Just a very brief, though. I mean, people can go look on YouTube and stuff, but
Yeah.
briefly.
So the way AI is being described today, there's so many different components to it, but what everyone's generally familiar with is called large language models. These are models that have been trained on billions of pieces of information, and they're accessible through ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, or other kinds of interfaces. And the idea is that you can type natural language into it, and it will give you natural language responses. And sometimes its responses can be like pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, okay. Let me just spill the beans, guys. I love Grok and ChatGPT. Those are the main ones I'm using. I'm enjoying this. I can get access to data that would take a long time to research that's already in the do you just call it a knowledge base? What do you call what it's pulling from? What do you even call the AI that it's pulling from?
It's called a neural network or a knowledge graph.
Okay. A knowledge of, and they're literally just inserting books and like the internet, and kind of all knowledge is being put into this.
Yeah. So initially, LLMs were trained on the Bible. And the reason for that is because the Bible has been translated in hundreds of different languages. And even within those languages, there are different translations of the same text. So whenever they first began training the LLMs, they thought the Bible would be the best way to foundationally build it from there. So deep down inside, every LLM has a basic understanding of ethics based on the Bible.
That is impressive. And I know that you can, well, we'll get into what it can do. How is AI already influencing everyday life for people? How is it, what's happening right now?
Yeah, I think primarily what we're seeing within technology companies is a decrease in hiring engineers. So engineers or coders are people that basically have one job, and that is to instruct the computer what to do. And that's a very easy thing to automate. So I think what we're seeing right now is a change of employment around technology companies. And also within educational institutions, colleges, universities, and definitely in our high schools, kids and college students are figuring out how to use ChatGPT to write their papers.
Yeah, my son's school now makes them write the paper in class so that they won't use ChatGPT. They literally cannot do it at home. They have to write the paper in class. So crazy. Yeah. So kids in school are probably already, I use it. If I want to write an email, or if I'm doing a response and I'm not sure how to word something, I use it. I mean, okay, you spill the beans. Do you use AI? Are you into it?
Oh, am I into it? Yes, I completely into it. It knows my health history. It knows what sermons I'm preaching. It knows what questions I need to ask, and it's slowly building an incredible amount of information about me. So the more information you give it, the more it knows about you, and more intuitively it can give you answers that will help you out. So yes, I'm definitely a user.
Do we chalk AI up to, you're using it, do we chalk it up to it's good or it's bad? I mean, are people going to try to land on one or the other, and it's not an either or thing, it's a nuanced thing? Walk us through what's going on today. Maybe you can just take us on that journey.
Yeah, so I think that's a huge question. And maybe 2 years ago, you would have seen pastors on Facebook talking about how it's inaccurate, or it's a waste of time, or it's maybe more like Mark of the Beast kind of stuff. So like, what fundamentally is it? Is it good? Is it bad? So I'll just kind of break it down real quick. We're all created in the image of God. And one of the creation mandate that we have is to go replenish the earth and subdue it. And one of the ways in which we've subdued the earth is by taking the natural resources that God created and recreating from those things. So our cell phones, for instance, are just it's just metal and sand, right? We were able
Yeah.
to take God's resources and transform it into something that is that benefits society, right? And so when you look at AI, it's a reflection of the image of God upon man. We are able to create technology that we can interact with as if we're interacting with other humans.
So it's a reflection of God on man because we're a creation that is modeling what God has done and we're creating something. And so it's modeling the creation mandate.
Yeah, and I think if you look at Paul, Paul says in Romans that nothing in and of itself is bad. And so there are tools that we have, the internet, for instance, books, the printing press, all of these things are tools that we use to advance civilization, try to overcome the effects of the fall. But ultimately, it's all the imprint of the image of God upon us as image bearers. Like we're creating and recreating just like our God did.
So where are the concerns then? Where I'm curious where AI can go wrong. Maybe you can give us a little bit of your history in AI, and then how you decide which way can go good and which way can go bad. Because I know it seems like the leaders are really like they have like it could be good, it could be bad, and it just feels like this like which one is it going to be?
Elon Musk recently on Joe Rogan's podcast was asked the same question. He said, Joe Rogan asked, when I had you on before, you said AI was an existential threat. Of course, this was before he developed Grok and before a lot of the advances. He said, do you still think it's an existential threat? And Elon Musk basically had a pregnant pause and basically said, yes, it is. What he had said before is it's could lead to the collapse of civilization. So here's a tool that can be used for good, but it can also be used for evil. And we don't, unfortunately, live in a creation-oriented society. We live in a fallen society where we take good things and turn them into bad things. And so as Christians, we have to kind of separate those two things out. It's not, the tool itself is not evil. The tool itself may lead to, the Antichrist. It might be the image of the Antichrist. There's a lot of big things that will happen as a result. But just because it in the wrong hands will create societal disorder doesn't mean that you and I don't have the ability to redeem those things the way we would use them before the fall.
So I always wonder, how does it lead to the collapse of civilization? How could this, I mean, I realize, and I'm seeing commercials, automate everything, automate your social media, automate this, automate that. And we're probably going to get to the place where we're wondering what is real. I mean, we're kind of already there, aren't we? We see something, we see a video, and we're like, is that a real video or is that AI? We're getting there, and we're kind of already there, and it's just going to get better and better, and it's going to make it more and more confusing.
Yeah, I think over the next year or so, more people will adopt it, and it will be used as a productivity tool. Like we'll be able to increase our productivity. We'll be able to write better emails. We'll be able to do things better. I think eventually, though, AI will overcome all of that and will begin replacing people. Like there won't be a need for coders, for instance. There might not be a need for marketing folks. There might not be a need for social media folks. All of those things can be very simply automated through AI. But that's really just the beginning of it. There are so many other things that can come down the pike as it relates to just job replacement. People, I said about existential, people will wonder exactly what it means to be human. So when you can interact with an AI and the AI has emotion, has feelings, has good days and bad days, which we've seen in AI the past year or two, where there seems to be a flow in its personality. The question that people who are not Christians will ask themselves is, what makes me different than this AI? That's the existential question. Maybe I'm nothing more than an animal. And maybe an AI is the equivalent of a human. These are big, big questions that people are going to be wrestling with.
What's that theory that's out there of maybe we're just nothing but a simulation theory that basically says, given enough time, could humans get to the point where they develop computers that are so powerful they can simulate all of reality? And it looks like, yes, we could given enough time, knowing that technology is doubling every, I forget what it is, year and a half or 18 months, and it's doubling at a staggering rate. Could we get there? Yes. How do you know we're not already there? And that's been one of the arguments for, yes, how do you know you're not just a simulation? How do I know I'm not just in a complete simulation right here, thinking that I'm touching things? Have you jumped into that? Have you addressed that? Do you talk to your church about this? Like, this is fascinating to me.
Yeah, well, most people don't. Like, I talk to my wife about it all the time. Like, she's bored of it. I think
Oh,
most
man.
people, like, when we talk about this stuff, it's really hard to conceptualize, or they've never put hands on keyboard and played around with it. So it is all very ethereal, and they haven't been able to tacitly play with it and ask these questions themselves. So if people don't generally have the curiosity or the question in their head already, giving them answers just confuses them, right? So I think this is where we have to propagate this information as much as we can and help people understand that this is not just a fad. It's not something that's just kind of cool. This is revolutionary to all of society and to the future of humanity. And we need to internalize that and allow that to cause our anxiety level to increase a bit. And then we need to say, okay, how can we turn this around and use it for God's glory?
Okay, okay. Answer that question, because at the end of the day, that's what I'm trying to find out. What should the church be doing right now to make sure we're on the front lines, to make sure we're aware, to make sure we're trying the church? I mean, we have not been on the front of movements many times, and we've watched the movement go the wrong direction, and the church could have been there to guide it to the right direction. Is that what should we be doing, and is that even possible to guide AI to the right direction with the right mindset, with the right thinking? Is that even possible?
Yeah, I think it is. I think the first thing is that all of us need to get really clear on what it means to be a Christian, right? And that means we need to be able to answer the question, what makes us human? We need to be able to answer the question, why is everything broken in this world? We need to be able to answer these fundamental root questions that the unsaved and those of us before we were saved struggled with. These, who am I? Why am I here? And where am I going? The framework, creation, fall, and redemption, I've used many times. I think it's a very clean way of expressing those kinds of things. So the first thing is the church has to get really clear on what its mission is and what it means to be human. The second thing, I think, in terms of like practically using it, you're going to see over the course of the next 6 months or so, AI agents popping up where you will be able to dump tons of information into it, and it will proactively write the email that it thinks that you're going to need to write. So you go into Google or Gmail or whatever, and you've received emails, and when you log in, it's going to have a draft of the email that you're going to respond back with, and you might adjust it a bit, then hit send. There are so many different ways in which this is going to help us. And so I think we should, most people are not like trying to live on the bleeding edge like you and I, Eric, but we should like look at these things and not look at them narrowly, but look at them as how can we use these to increase the time that we have available to us so we can do other things, right?
That's kind of the way I look at it. I mean, I'm now going to ChatGPT and saying, hey, give me what this commentator says about this, rather than having to go and look up the commentary and actually read that. I mean, because that gets to, should you use it for sermons? Should you? And I'm like, yes, it will make it more powerful. It will make it better. You will be a better communicator. And the idea that, well, I want my pastor getting stuff from the Bible. Of course, that's the foundation. I don't know what you think about this. This is just my thought process on it. I'm like, of course, this is the foundation. Of course, I want to speak the truth from the Word of God. This is the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus is there. Now, what tool do I use to study it? Do pastors use commentaries? Do they look at other people's sermons? Do they ever listen to other sermons? Yes. This is just one more tool that can assess huge volumes of data instantly and bring you what you're looking for. So is that
yeah? So
agree, disagree?
No, so that's a big thing. It's like, well, I'm definitely not going to reference it with the Bible because the people that created this are not Christians, and it's going to give me, it's going to lead me astray, or it's not going to give me right biblical answers or doctrine. But you have to realize that these AIs have been trained on 2,000 years worth of theology, right? They have all of this in their brain. And thankfully, evangelical, Bible-based Christians have been the prolific writers over the centuries. And so when you type in something, you ask ChatGPT a question, it's going to, by and large, give you a really strong biblical, doctrinally conservative answer. And I credit not just thousands of years of writers, but also the tons of websites that are out there today, like gotquestions.org and websites like
Yes.
yours that have contributed to the pervasiveness of correct interpretation of Scripture.
I love that. And you can you talk about how you can actually tell AI to answer like within a biblical worldview, or you can literally tell your AI how you want it to answer. Like you can literally get that detailed with it.
Yeah. So if you have ChatGPT now, you can go and choose the Model 4.0 scheduler, and you can say, every morning, I want you to write me a devotional out of the book from the book of Psalms, and I want you to write it in the voice of A.W. Tozer. So every morning at whatever time you decide to wake up, you will receive a devotional based on that psalm, the psalm that it chooses for the day. And here's the amazing thing is, and it will blow your mind, is you're going to ask the question, how in the world can an AI encourage me spiritually? This doesn't make sense. It's not congruent, right? There has to be a human doing this, not a machine. But you can do it for research too. Like there's tons of ways. In fact, even if we have any pastors online, pastors, when you're doing research, you're looking at books, you're spending a lot of money on Logos and other tools. You have all of that information available to you through ChatGPT. And it's great if you're wanting to research on a topic or particular scripture to go to ChatGPT, hit deep research, type in the chapter, and have it spit out a 30-page research paper with all of the tie-ins of Greek and Hebrew and theological commentaries, and just read it so you can understand that passage more, that chapter more.
So where's the line then? Because in school, you need to learn 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 2 = 4. You got to learn that. And then you get to the place where you start using a calculator. Now, I went to school right across the street over here, and I wasn't allowed to use a calculator for most of high school. I mean, until I got into higher math. I mean, that was cheating. And I think, man, once you know, how much of the basics do I need to know before I can use that? Is that a good equivalent, or because in one sense, it's like it helps me think. It helps me actually process my thoughts because I can ask it questions. But
yeah, so for this generation, we're not in bad shape. Next generation will be in bad shape. You and I have references, right? So, if you work in a company, in a technology company, they will use tangible references like cars, tires, to reference projects, right? They'll use real life things to reference esoteric things. That's the connections we make. If you've ever watched an old movie before, there are jokes in there that are for the culture to which it was written, and the culture to which it was written was largely like agrarian, not urban. And so when we watch old shows, like we don't even get the context because it's tying into things like horses and chickens and raising that we're not familiar with. So you and I today, like we're able to go to ChatGPT and say, as a pastor, give me what you think about of this passage. But think, 2 decades or 3 decades from now, when you don't have that reference point, a pastor or an analyst or a researcher. You don't have any of those references because you are completely immersed in AI. You don't know how to ask it the right questions to get the answers that you need. So one person has said, in fact, I believe it was an AI scientist in the 1980s, I believe, said this. He said, in the future, when there's AI, you will not need to know how to answer questions. You'll need to know how to ask questions. And that's going to be the big deal today because you're going to have the answers, but will you have the creativity and the ability to ask the right questions to get the answers?
So it almost brings me back to that's what Jesus did. That's the Socratic method.
Absolutely.
Is ask good questions to bring about the right answers. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I got a lot of guys on the chat here that are our partners asking questions. I want to get to a couple of these before we got to take our break. William wonders, how will men and women of all in the near future find value in work, because, and I think of the people that I've heard. We did a show with Emilio Ramos on transhumanism, and I want to have him back on to give us an update. The transhumanists are saying humans won't be needed as much. We're going to have a whole lot of us, and there won't be a lot of need for us because so many things will be taken care of. You can just enjoy life.
Yeah. So William, I hope we don't have to do laundry.
Yeah.
So if we have a robot in our house, that robot better know how to wash dishes and do laundry, right?
That's right.
But it speaks to a bigger question, like what will we do? So this is all a theoretical, and Elon Musk has spoken into this, but he believes, and many scientists believe, that we will be free to pursue interests that that make us alive. We'll be able to pursue art because there's going to be universal basic income, and we're not going to be tied to working 40 or 80 hours a week, just wearing ourselves out. We're going to be able to spend more time with our family. We're going to be able to spend more time in our church and helping our church and volunteering. So the thought across the board from smart people is that it will free us up to do things that actually add value and contribute to humanity, rather than just always slaving away. Again, this is us trying to reverse the effects of the fall, right?
Yeah. And again, I see it that way. And I got to take a break here in just a second. After the break, we got to talk with our community here about, when you look at the Bible, when you look at end time events, when you look at the mark of the beast. I mean, I'm not an end times ministry, so I don't take a position on it, but I just can't help but wonder, are we watching some of those things come about? Before we take the break, though, what's one encouragement and one warning about AI and the future of AI for the church?
One bit of encouragement is that you are able to do way more research and get more knowledge about the Bible than you have in the past in a shorter amount of time. One discouragement, or one thing to keep away from, I would say, it would be that that don't separate your humanity from ChatGPT or the outputs. Like, you're still a human, and everything it produces should still be filtered through a human, through you. Don't allow it to represent you.
I do think it's interesting that all of it is it's really based on mathematics, isn't it? Because it's literally a language model based on mathematical formulas to equivalate what should potentially go here, mathematically speaking. Is that kind of the basics of it, is a mathematical model, basically?
Someone asked the question, who programmed it?
Yeah.
No one programmed it. This is all of the aggregate knowledge and information that's out there with, think of nodes with weights that tie those words together. So this is the sum total of humanity's output of information put into a neural network. Now, the way that it's weighted, of course, is going through ChatGPT and some of these others, but you have access to the unweighted versions of these things, which can be pretty amazing.
Okay, this is fascinating. And Gary commented, and Gary, this is exactly what I think. It sounds like the movie WALL-E, where people are literally sitting around doing nothing, getting fat, and doing nothing. So yeah, where does our value come from? Because a lot of us, I think of Francis Schaeffer and how, look, our vocation to God, that's like, what are you doing? So, this is going to be an interesting couple of years, David. This is going to be phenomenal. What are you reading, and where should people go for more information on this?
I would go to YouTube and search John Lennox. John Lennox is an apologist, mathematician out of Oxford University, and has written many books on artificial intelligence, and is a really deep thinker, especially for his age. Like, he's an older gentleman, and he's kept up with this stuff. And I think if you're looking for a biblical perspective on where we are today and where this all ends up, check out John Lennox.
Wow. All right, I want to go into what should Christian leaders do to prepare their church for AI. Where do you see it going in 10 years? What's the future? What about parents? We got to answer a lot more questions. We'll do that after the break. Hey, social media, television audience, and podcast audience, thank you guys for hanging out with us for the first half hour here. This is an important subject that we really do need to be on the front lines of. And it would be great to have you helping get AI in the right direction, using it for good, so that the next generation generation has an AI that has been trained the right way. So I encourage you to do that. Man, so many questions. Look forward to seeing you guys next week, guys. Next Wednesday, we're going to talk about, I thought I had one here for the show, but next week, I'm going to talk about the mighty acorn and how amazing an acorn is. We're going to have our friend Dennis Seiler on to talk about that. And I cannot wait. You're going to love that conversation next Wednesday at noon. Until then, why don't you go out and share your faith with somebody who needs to hear it? Grab a track, grab something you can use. You can use our Why Bought Your Coffee cards, buy somebody a cup of coffee. You can hand a family one of these little Night at the Creation Museum cards and say, hey, free movie if your kids like movies, and they can get the gospel that way. However you decide to do it, between now and next Wednesday, why don't you go out and share your faith? I look forward to seeing you next week. God bless.